The galaxy had always been a place of conflict and diplomacy, each species vying for power and influence in the ever-expanding expanse of space for centuries. Earth had navigated this tumultuous landscape with a cautious diplomacy, born from their experience on a volatile world. Their efforts to peacefully integrate into the Galactic Council had not been without difficulty, but humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Ambassador Lyle had been at the forefront of these efforts, a calm and calculating presence who had worked tirelessly to represent Earth's interests in a galaxy full of competing forces. The day the broadcast aired, the universe held its breath in unison as the Galactic Council convened for what was supposed to be a routine session of interstellar negotiations. It had been planned to be a quiet matter, just a technicality regarding Earth's expanding role in the galactic economy. But as the broadcast flickered to life, something went terribly wrong. Lyle stood in the center of the Grand Hall facing the council in his usual composed manner, but there was a change in the atmosphere, a coldness that wasn't there before. The normally welcoming faces of the council members were now cold and detached, their eyes fixed on Lyle with an unsettling intensity in their gaze. There were whispers, and then the voice of the presiding official rang out clear and cold, declaring that Ambassador Lyle had been found guilty of treason against the Galactic Council. The charges were vague accusations of espionage and illicit alliances with rogue factions of the galaxy. The Council did not elaborate further. The decision was final and immediate. Lyle's eyes never wavered as the statement was made. His expression remained stoic as the murmurs rippled through the assembly, his mind racing in that moment. He knew this was not a fair trial. This was not justice. This was an execution orchestrated by unseen forces whose motives remained shrouded in darkness. His mouth opened as if to speak in his defense, but no words came out. The guards who had been standing watch approached quickly and with grim precision bound his arms and led him toward the execution platform. Across Earth, in the farthest reaches of space, every human with access to communication systems witnessed this moment. The cold indifference of the council as Lyle was dragged through the hall. The execution ceremony was a spectacle, one meant to serve as a grim warning to all who might dare challenge the will of the Galactic Council. The humans watching knew what was coming, but they could not tear their eyes away from the screen they watched as Lyle's life was taken with a single stroke. The broadcast ended with the Council's victory declared as an undeniable fact. Silence filled the airwaves for a long moment before the chaos began. The news spread like wildfire across the human colonies. Earth itself was ablaze with protests as people filled the streets demanding answers. The government was swift to act, but even they were caught off guard by the sheer scale of the anger that surged through every city, every nation. Humanity had long been a peaceful people, but this was something different. This was not the response of a people beaten down, but a people awakened. The images of Lyle's execution burned into the minds of every human who saw it, and something inside them shifted. A dormant rage that had long been kept in check began to stir within their hearts. They had been wronged in a way that could never be undone, and now they were united in a single purpose: to make the Galactic Council pay for their arrogance. Humanity would no longer stand by and be subjugated. The call for action rang out across the globe from every corner of Earth. The cry was simple, the message clear: vengeance would be theirs, and there would be no peace until the Council fell. The first spark of rebellion had ignited, and it would not be easily extinguished. The broadcast of Ambassador Lyle's execution echoed through every city across Earth, as though the very pulse of the planet had been disrupted. The grief was palpable, but it quickly morphed into something darker and more dangerous. The streets were no longer silent with sorrow. They were alive with fury and outrage. Humanity had always prided itself on its resilience, but now that resilience was boiling over into a desire for retribution. The news outlets flooded with reports of protests. Clashes between civilians and law enforcement erupted from New York to Beijing to Rio de Janeiro. The message was clear: Earth had been wronged, and humanity would not let it stand. Within hours, a global summit convened with the United Earth government, scrambling to address the growing unrest. While the world leaders met in secret behind closed doors, The people of Earth were no longer waiting for answers. They took to the streets in overwhelming numbers, holding banners demanding justice for Lyle and every other human who had been mistreated by the Galactic Council. The air was thick with chants and calls for action. The voices of millions were united as one. The world was no longer fractured by politics or ideologies, but bound together by a single burning desire. General Alexis Vaughn watched from her command center as the chaos unfolded across Earth. She had seen war before, and she had seen human defiance in the face of overwhelming odds, but nothing had prepared her for this, the sheer raw power of humanity's collective anger. She had long been regarded as one of Earth's finest military minds, but even she could not ignore the enormity of the task that lay ahead. The Galactic Council was a vast and powerful entity, and Earth had only just begun to awaken to the possibility of war. But Vaughn knew something the rest of Earth did not. The humans were not like any other species the galaxy had encountered before. They had endured through countless wars and adversities. Their resilience was forged through centuries of survival. Their adaptability and ingenuity were their greatest strengths. Earth might not have the military might of the galactic powers, but it had something more dangerous, something the Council had underestimated: a deep well of untapped potential. The general knew that humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would not bow to the will of the Galactic Council. They would rise and fight with every ounce of strength they had, and with the resources at their disposal, they would find a way to challenge the seemingly invincible alliance that had just executed their ambassador. Vaughn's mind raced through the possibilities. She knew Earth's fleet was outdated compared to the more advanced species that populated the Council's ranks, but there was a certain beauty in that limitation. It forced humanity to think outside the box. As protests spread across Earth, the general quietly issued a call to arms. She reached out to every branch of Earth's military and intelligence network, mobilizing a resistance that would soon be a force to be reckoned with. The world's leaders scrambled to take control of the situation, some calling for peace, others demanding immediate retaliation. But Vaughn had a different plan. She wasn't going to wait for the Council to come knocking at Earth's doorstep. She would bring the fight to them. She would make them feel the full force of humanity's fury. In the wake of Lyle's death, humanity was no longer divided by old rivalries or petty disagreements. They had all seen the same broadcast. They had all witnessed the same injustice. And now they would all answer the call for vengeance. There was no turning back from this path, no negotiation. No compromise would be enough to quell the fires of rage that had been lit across the globe. The Galactic Council had made its move, and now humanity would make theirs with a single unified voice. They declared that war was coming, and they would not stop until the Council had paid for its betrayal. The early days following the execution were a blur of frantic mobilization and strategy. Earth had never been united like this before. The protests had given way to something more structured as the governments of every nation set aside their differences and joined forces in the name of a singular cause. The United Earth Government was restructured into a military command overseeing the effort to prepare humanity for the war that was now inevitable. General Alexis Vaughn was appointed as the supreme commander of Earth's unified military forces, and in that moment, she became the face of humanity's resistance against the Galactic Council. In the wake of Vaughn's appointment, the world's military leaders set to work quickly uniting Earth's scattered resources into a cohesive force. Every branch of Earth's armed forces, every research facility, and every industrial complex was mobilized for one singular purpose: to fight back against the advanced fleets of the Galactic Council. Earth had nothing but its ingenuity and its unbreakable will, yet it was in this very weakness that humanity found its strength. Vaughn's first order of business was to rebuild Earth's space fleets, which had been woefully underfunded and outdated by galactic standards. The forces that had once served as mere peacekeepers were now being adapted into a formidable fighting force, utilizing the remnants of old battleships, decommissioned vessels, and salvaged alien technology. Human engineers worked day and night to retrofit and reverse engineer any advantage they could find. What they lacked in sheer power, they more than made up for in their relentless drive and capacity to innovate. Vaughn knew that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't simply its military technology. It was its people. The same resourcefulness that had gotten humanity through the trials of survival on their harsh world was now their most valuable asset, where other species might rely on brute strength or overwhelming numbers. Humans had the ability to improvise and adapt to any situation. The very fact that they had survived and thrived in a universe filled with so many advanced and diverse species was a testament to their resilience. While Earth's military began the transformation, a parallel movement was brewing in the shadows. The resistance factions that had initially emerged during the protests grew into a network of operatives dedicated to undermining the Galactic Council. From within, with Vaughn's blessing, covert operations began to infiltrate Council-controlled territories on Earth's behalf. The first act of defiance came swiftly and decisively. Human operatives in several key Council installations sabotaged their communications and supply lines, forcing the Council to divert their resources to counteract these growing threats. At the same time, the political ramifications of Lyle's execution rippled throughout the galaxy. Although the Council had thought their execution of the human ambassador would be a final and conclusive action, it had sparked an unexpected firestorm of dissent among the lesser-known species who were tired of the Galactic Council's heavy-handed rule. Whispers of rebellion grew louder as several species voiced their concerns over the Council's actions toward humanity. The unity of the Council began to splinter as factions within its ranks grew disillusioned with its methods and leadership. General Vaughn, ever the tactician, recognized the importance of these fissures. She saw an opportunity to gain allies from within the ranks of those who had suffered under the Council's dominance, and began to send emissaries to various alien species, offering a vision of a new galactic order, one where humanity would be a key player, but where the voices of other oppressed races could be heard as well. Vaughn's words were persuasive, and soon representatives from several smaller galactic factions reached out to Earth, offering their support in secret. As Earth's military strength grew and its alliances began to form, Vaughn knew that the time was coming when the Galactic Council would have no choice but to reckon with the growing human threat. The war was not going to be an easy one, and Earth's forces were still outnumbered, but with every passing day, humanity grew stronger and more united. Every success, no matter how small, fueled their resolve, and for the first time in their history, the people of Earth saw themselves not as isolated survivors in a vast galaxy, but as a force that could not be ignored. With humanity's will strengthened and their ranks swelling with new allies, General Vaughn made a declaration to the people of Earth. They would not rest until Ambassador Lyle's death had been avenged, and the Galactic Council had been toppled. Humanity's path to total war had begun, and there would be no turning back. The call for war had ignited a spark across Earth, and within mere months, that spark had turned into a blazing inferno. The unrelenting drive of humanity, united under a single cause, pushed them forward. The Galactic Council had underestimated them. Their fleets, so accustomed to dominance across the stars, had never expected the human ingenuity and sheer determination that now surged from Earth. General Alexis Vaughn watched as her plans began to take shape, knowing that the time for humanity's first strike was fast approaching. The Lyra system would be their proving ground. It was a system far enough from Council space that the Council might not take humanity seriously, but close enough to be a symbolic victory that would send a message across the galaxy. For Earth's fleet, still in the early stages of its reconstruction, the odds were staggering. The Council's ships were sleek and powerful, technologically superior in every conceivable way. Earth's fleet was a patched-together collection of retrofitted vessels, scavenged from decommissioned ships, repurposed civilian craft, and newly constructed ships hastily thrown together by human engineers. But what they lacked in technological superiority, they made up for with creativity. Vaughn's fleet didn't just rely on brute force. They used strategy, innovation, and the unpredictability of a species that had survived countless challenges on their homeworld. The first engagement came without warning. The human fleet, disguised by a series of misdirected signals and false transmissions, ambushed the Council's forces stationed at Lyra 5. a colony world on the outskirts of Council space. The Council believed they were facing a minor rebellion, perhaps a pirate faction, or some rogue fleet trying to make a statement. They had no idea what was coming for them. General Vaughn's strategy was as simple as it was brilliant. Strike fast, strike hard, and disrupt the enemy before they could mobilize their superior forces. The humans didn't waste time in the initial moments of the battle, using unexpected tactics to catch the Council ships off guard. The first wave of human ships, armed with newly developed plasma cannons, targeted the Council's communications satellites and supply stations. It was a move that was bold and unexpected. Without their communications and logistical support, the Council's fleet began to fragment. Human ships, often slower and less heavily armored, made up for their weaknesses with speed and precision. They danced through the chaos of battle with surprising agility, exploiting weaknesses in the Council ship's defensive systems. A small group of human fighter crafts deployed in flanking positions, drawing Council fighters into ambushes where they were quickly outmaneuvered and destroyed. The humans had done what had once been thought impossible. They had taken the first strike and inflicted damage on an enemy far superior in number and technology. By the time the Council reinforcements arrived, Earth's fleet had already executed a flawless retreat, having inflicted serious damage to Council infrastructure on the planet and the surrounding fleet. The message was sent loud and clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Council had suffered their first true defeat in this war, and it was at the hands of a species they had once regarded as nothing more than a footnote in galactic history. The aftermath of the battle was a moment of triumph for humanity. News of the victory spread like wildfire across Earth and its colonies. People who had once feared for the future now saw a glimmer of hope. The victory galvanized the population even further, proving that humanity's will to survive, adapt, and fight could overcome even the most impossible odds. General Vaughn, standing before her fleet in the aftermath, spoke to her people through a broadcast. "This is only the beginning. The first strike has been made, but we will continue until the Galactic Council is nothing more than a memory. This victory is not just for Earth. It is for every species that has been oppressed, every voice that has been silenced. We will fight until justice is served." The victory in the Lyra system sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, shaking their belief in their invincibility. In the wake of the battle, the Council's allies began to whisper, questioning whether the balance of power was shifting. The humans had made their mark, and they would not be ignored any longer. The message was clear. Humanity was here to stay, and they were ready for war. Emboldened by their unexpected victory at Lyra 5, humanity wasted no time pressing the advantage. General Alexis Vaughn knew that every victory would bring them closer to their ultimate goal, but they needed to capitalize on their momentum. The success had not only given their forces a much-needed morale boost, but had sent ripples of fear through the Galactic Council. Earth's first strike had proven that humanity could not be easily dismissed. It was time to take the fight to the heart of Council space, and Vaughn's eyes were set on the prize. Eryxos, a heavily fortified planet, and key military base for the Council. Eryxos was considered nearly impregnable. Its defenses were state-of-the-art, its orbit swarming with heavily armed ships, and its surface bristled with the latest in planetary defense technology. For many, it was a fortress that represented the strength and unyielding power of the Galactic Council. It was precisely that reason that Vaughn chose it as the next target. She knew that taking Eryxos would send a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity was not afraid of the Council's might, and no matter how fortified their strongholds were, the humans would find a way through. The plan to assault Eryxos was daring and complex. Vaughn divided her forces into multiple strike groups, each with a specific objective. The first wave would strike at the planet's outer defenses, distracting the Council long enough for a secondary group to slip through and infiltrate the planet's surface to disable its most critical systems. Simultaneously, another task force would engage the fleet stationed in orbit, ensuring that the incoming reinforcements would be delayed. To accomplish this, Earth's engineers once again relied on their ingenuity. They developed a new type of stealth technology, something they had reverse-engineered from the scraps of alien tech scavenged from their previous skirmishes. It wasn't perfect, but it would be enough to slip past the Council's sensors undetected. The human fleet, now better coordinated and equipped than before, would be able to move in and out of the battle zones with a level of unpredictability that even the most advanced Council ships could not anticipate. The assault on Eryxos came at dawn. As the human fleet approached, a wave of silent dread swept over the Council forces stationed on the planet. They had never faced an opponent who used such unconventional tactics. The first wave hit quickly, overwhelming the planetary defense platforms with precision strikes that exploited weak points in their shields. The Council was caught off guard as their outer defenses crumbled in mere hours. However, this was just a distraction. As the bulk of their fleet scrambled to defend Eryxos from the assault, the second wave, a fleet of stealth ships, slipped in unnoticed, striking deep into the heart of the planet's defense grid. As the cover team worked their way through the underbelly of Eryxos, Vaughn's strike force moved in to engage the Council fleet in orbit. With deadly precision, the humans used their hit-and-run tactics to draw the Council ships into tight formations, where they could easily be picked off. The battle in space was fierce and chaotic, but humanity's ability to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions kept them one step ahead. As the Council fleet began to disintegrate, Vaughn's forces moved swiftly to seize control of the planet's key military installations. By the time reinforcements from the Galactic Council arrived, it was too late. The human forces had already taken control of the planet's most important facilities, including the Central Command Tower. Eryxos, once considered one of the strongest military outposts in the galaxy, had fallen. The victory was a staggering blow to the Council's military strategy and its morale. The human forces, though battered and bloodied, stood triumphant on Eryxos. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored or underestimated. The Galactic Council had lost a key stronghold, and their control over this part of space had been shattered. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy was forced to reckon with a new reality. Humanity had the power, the will, and the ability to dismantle the once unbreakable dominance of the Galactic Council. As General Vaughn stood overlooking the conquered world, she spoke to her people. This is not just a victory for Earth. It's a victory for everyone who has ever been oppressed, for every race that has been forced into submission. The Galactic Council will learn that humanity is not to be trifled with. We will burn our path across the galaxy until justice is served. The flames of rebellion had spread, and they would not be extinguished. With each passing victory, humanity was proving that they could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy, and that the fight for their freedom would continue until the Galactic Council was no more. The fall of Eryxos sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, and the news quickly spread across Council-controlled systems. Earth had done the impossible, shattering one of the Galactic Council's most fortified positions. What had once seemed like an unthinkable rebellion now appeared as a burgeoning empire with the potential to rewrite the balance of power in the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was no longer an afterthought. They had become a force that could not be ignored. On Earth, the victory was met with euphoric celebration, but General Alexis Vaughn knew that they could not afford to become complacent. Eryxos was a critical victory, but the war was far from over. The Galactic Council was vast, and its military might was far from depleted. With every victory humanity claimed, the Council's resolve would only harden. Vaughn knew that the real challenge was not just taking territory, but maintaining the momentum and ensuring that humanity's newfound allies, alien species who had begun to rally to their cause, would remain committed to the fight. The next phase of the war required careful diplomacy. Vaughn had to navigate a delicate balance, ensuring that Earth's forces stayed united, while also courting new allies in their quest to topple the Galactic Council. In the wake of their defeat at Eryxos, several other alien factions, long oppressed by the Council's brutal rule, reached out to Earth. Many of these species had lived in fear for centuries, their voices drowned out by the Council's dominance. But now, with Earth leading the charge, they saw an opportunity for freedom. The question was no longer whether humanity would succeed. It was now a matter of how many others would join them. Vaughn established a coalition, a united front of species that had long been subjugated. Among them were the Drakkar, a reptilian species known for their resilience in battle, and the Vesari, a race of aquatic beings who had been enslaved by the Council for centuries. These new allies brought vital resources and manpower to the fight, strengthening humanity's war effort. Together, they formed a formidable alliance, a multi-species force capable of striking at the very heart of the Galactic Council. But with these new alliances came new challenges. Different species had different ways of fighting, different philosophies, and different cultural understandings of war. Vaughn, though a brilliant strategist, had to carefully manage these differences to keep the alliance from fracturing. There were tensions, occasional disagreements, but her leadership was unyielding. She knew that the Council would exploit any cracks in their unity, and so she worked tirelessly to forge stronger bonds between the factions, often spending days in high-level meetings, making compromises when necessary, but always with the goal of ensuring that their shared objective remained clear. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the war escalated. The Galactic Council, reeling from the loss of Eryxos, responded swiftly. They poured reinforcements into key sectors, rallying their fleets and redirecting resources to quash the growing rebellion. The Council's strategy was one of attrition, overwhelm the human forces with sheer numbers and advanced technology. But Earth's fleet, now reinforced by alien allies, had become more than just a collection of human ships. The unity of purpose between the species and the Alliance made them a force unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The next major conflict came when the human allied fleet engaged a massive Council fleet in the Zethra system, a critical trade route the Council controlled. It was here that Earth's newly forged alliances would be tested. The battle was brutal, with both sides suffering significant losses. The human forces, led by Vaughn, employed guerrilla tactics, using smaller, more maneuverable ships to harass the Council fleet while avoiding direct confrontations. The strategy worked, but the battle came at a cost. Both sides endured heavy casualties, and the Zethra system became a battleground of broken ships and wreckage. Yet the humans had once again struck a blow to the Council, forcing them to retreat from a strategically crucial system. In the wake of the Zethra battle, humanity's resolve hardened. They had tasted victory, and now they could not turn back. The Galactic Council, for the first time, was on the defensive. They had underestimated Earth once, and it would not happen again. With every engagement, humanity's forces grew stronger, and their alliances deepened. But General Vaughn knew that the war was far from over. The Council would strike back, harder than ever before. Earth had made powerful enemies, but they had also made powerful allies. Now they had to prove that they could win this war, not just for themselves, but for every species that had suffered under the Council's tyranny. The tide of the war was shifting, but the final battle was still a distant, uncertain future. With each victory, humanity's confidence grew, but so did the stakes. The Galactic Council, now fully aware of the grave threat humanity posed, was determined to crush the rebellion before it could spread further. In secret meetings, Council officials discussed the unthinkable, a weapon of mass destruction, a final solution to rid the galaxy of this growing human insurrection. They knew that Earth's resilience could not be defeated through conventional means alone. Their plan was one of devastating finality, an attack that would strike at the very heart of humanity's spirit. Meanwhile, General Alexis Vaughn had become a symbol of resistance across the galaxy. Her leadership had inspired not only humanity, but also a coalition of alien species who had joined the war. The Drakkar Vesari and several others had come together under a single banner, committed to toppling the Council's reign. As the war stretched on, Earth's fleet had grown in strength and sophistication, constantly evolving to match the Council's overwhelming technological superiority. Yet Vaughn knew that the Council's next move would be catastrophic. They would not stop until humanity had been obliterated. The human allied fleet had suffered its share of losses, but each blow only fueled their determination. The latest battle, fought in the Shorith Expanse, was a costly one. Despite the victory, Vaughn knew the toll it had taken. The Council had learned from their previous mistakes and began adapting their tactics. They understood the humans now, how they'd fought, how they used their ingenuity, how they could outthink and outmaneuver their superior forces. The Council was beginning to match Earth's unpredictability with their own devastating countermeasures. In the weeks following the Shorith victory, Vaughn made a decision that would forever change the course of the war. The time had come for a direct assault on the Council's capital, Exothar, the beating heart of their empire. The planet was a fortress, its defenses formidable, its orbit crowded with the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. But Vaughn knew that the longer they waited, the stronger the Council would become. She made a bold call to strike before the enemy could finalize their weapon, before the storm the Council was planning could be unleashed. Humanity's fleet, now more unified and battle-hardened than ever, began preparations for the assault. The first stage of the operation was infiltration. Small, stealthy ships, armed with the most advanced cloaking technology, would slip past Exothar's defenses and disable key planetary defense systems. Once those were down, the full force of the Alliance would launch an all-out assault on the planet's surface and in orbit. It was a daring, high-risk operation. But if they could take Exothar, they could cripple the Council's command structure and break their grip on the galaxy. The night before the assault, General Vaughn gathered her commanders and allies in a secure briefing room aboard the flagship Vanguard. The mood was tense, but there was an air of determination, a quiet resolve. She knew the coming battle could cost them everything, but it was a risk they had no choice but to take. "Tomorrow," Vaughn said, her voice steady and unwavering, "we fight not just for Earth, not just for the species who stand with us. We fight for every species who has suffered under the Council's rule, and we fight for the future, for the galaxy we can build once the chains of oppression are shattered." Her words resonated deeply with the assembled commanders. The stakes had never been higher. The war had been long and brutal, but now it was about to reach its breaking point. The battle for Exothar would either be humanity's crowning triumph or its ultimate defeat. Vaughn's mind raced through the possibilities. She could not afford to lose this fight, not when they were so close to victory. As the fleet moved into position, the very fabric of the galaxy seemed to tremble in anticipation. The humans, with their ragtag fleets and unyielding will, were about to strike at the heart of the Galactic Council. They had taken the first steps toward vengeance. Now they would fight for their place in the galaxy, and nothing, no matter the cost, would stop them. The storm that had been building for so long was about to break, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The final assault on Exothar was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human allied fleet, now bolstered by their allies from across the stars, surged toward the heart of the Galactic Council's empire with unwavering resolve. The massive planetary defenses of Exothar loomed in the distance, a near-impenetrable wall of energy shields, automated weapon platforms, and fleets of warships. But the humans were no longer intimidated. They had seen this kind of opposition before and had come to know how to outwit it, outmaneuver it, and make it bend to their will. General Alexis Vaughn stood at the bridge of the Vanguard, the flagship of the human fleet. Her eyes, filled with the fire of resolve, scanned the battlefield unfolding before her. It was a sea of stars, brimming with the power and might of countless ships and the desperation of all who had joined this final stand. Around her, her commanders and allies were prepared for a battle that could decide the fate of the galaxy. The stakes were higher than ever. As the fleet made its approach to Exothar, they were met with heavy resistance. The Council's fleet, the most advanced and numerous force ever assembled, positioned itself in defensive formations around the planet. But humanity had a new weapon. Covert operations from within the heart of Council space had allowed their engineers to develop a powerful EMP weapon that could disable the Council's most sophisticated systems. This weapon, along with their perfected cloaking technologies, would allow them to strike at the heart of Exother's defenses before they could even react. The first wave of human ships, led by a fleet of stealth destroyers, descended into the planet's atmosphere, avoiding detection by the Council's advanced sensors. The EMP pulses they unleashed in rapid succession shut down key defense systems, plunging Exother's planetary shields and communication arrays into chaos. The Council's command center, once the nerve center of their operations, was left vulnerable, exposed to the full force of the human assault. Vaughn's fleet wasted no time. The remaining human ships, supported by their alien allies, poured in from the outer system in waves, overwhelming the remaining defensive positions. The Council's once proud fleet tried to reorganize, but it was too late. Humanity had already gained a foothold on the planet's surface, and their forces were steadily advancing toward the Council's core command center. The final battle for the heart of the Galactic Council had begun. As the battle raged on, General Vaughn led her forces into the very heart of the Council's capital. The planet was a fortress, with miles of underground tunnels and defensive bunkers built into the very crust of Exother. Yet the humans, along with their new allies, fought with a relentless tenacity. Every inch of Exother was contested, but the tide of the battle was unmistakably shifting in humanity's favor. The Galactic Council's defenses were crumbling beneath the weight of this unified rebellion. With the final defenses of the capital faltering, Vaughn and her most trusted officers stormed the Galactic Council's central command facility. It was a sprawling complex, the size of a small city, and within its walls lay the heart of the Council's power. The officers they fought against were not just soldiers. They were the political elite, the architects of oppression across the galaxy. But the human forces, driven by the memory of every fallen soldier and every oppressed species, pushed forward with an intensity born from their unyielding spirit. As the human forces reached the central command chamber, the leader of the Galactic Council, Supreme Chancellor Ilarion, stood in defiance, flanked by his closest generals. The Council's final attempt at negotiation was brief, a last plea to humanity to accept subjugation for the greater good of the galaxy. But Vaughn would not be swayed. The message had been clear from the very beginning. There would be no more compromise, no more surrender. In a final decisive moment, General Vaughn made her way to the central console and disabled the Council's most powerful command systems. As she did, the massive control hubs flickered and died. Across the galaxy, the control mechanisms that had kept the Galactic Council in power for centuries went dark. The very core of the Council had been shattered. With Exother's fall, the Galactic Council was no more. Their once unified empire fractured as systems began to break free from their tyranny. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed. No longer would humanity or their allies bow to the oppression of a distant, uncaring government. Vaughn stood at the top of the central command tower, looking out over the ruins of the Council's stronghold. Her mission was complete, but she knew the work ahead would be even more challenging. Rebuilding a galaxy, one that would be free, fair, and united by the lessons of war. In the ashes of the old order, the first true steps toward a new galactic civilization began. Humanity had made their mark, and the galaxy would never forget it.